For my leadership project presentation, I interviewed Caitlin Giamarino. The reason why I chose her is that she had two very distinct leadership roles. She had her experience as a cheer captain in high school, as well as her experiences as a retail trainer at Macy's, where she had to lead a group of about 5 to 6 individuals. I like that she had two very different roles in leadership, and they both also overlapped a little bit as well. And one being in high school, and then one being when she was in college, you could also see from her answers in my interview that her knowledge had become greater over time and she had learned new strategies and ways to lead a team better. So I had three different categories or topics that I like to elaborate on from what I learned from the interview. The first being credibility, the second being transitioning and power distance, and then the third being diversity. So, with credibility, the question that I asked to her was, how did the individuals that you were training take you seriously? What was your credibility when you were a trainer, and how well were you respected? So, in her cheer captain experience, she was very well respected because she was a senior in high school, and then she had been on the cheer team all 4 years, stepping up to varsity her sophomore year. So, her experience basically gave her credibility in that situation. And then her Macy's example was a little bit different. So, her background at her job at Macy's. First, she was employed seasonally for a 3 month trial. After that, she was let go, obviously, because the season was over. And then she was hired a couple weeks after, as a trainer for a small group of 5 to 6. She would get new groups every week, and she would basically have to demonstrate what she learned in her experience and then demonstrate that to them, basically giving them the same skills that she has. So she loves to tell a story every time she starts her training, obviously. Um, she likes to say her experience of working with Macy's. So she had the job for 3 months, and then she was a regular old employee that was in the chair that they were sitting in now. And then she became a trainer and the person that's teaching them all the skills that they need to go through with their job on a day to day basis. So that was a real life example that she could tell them, and then she could give them a time frame and basically assure them that they were able to move up in the company. They weren't just going to be on the retail floor forever. The second topic is going to be about transitioning and the power distance. So this stemmed from a question that I asked her: was the power distance high or low in your training sessions, or from the trainer to the trainee, or from captain to regular cheerleader? So, first of all, she transitioned from obviously being cheer captain. She did that at high school. I asked her what kind of tips that she took from that role into the Macy's. And it's basically her work ethic is what just carried out. So there weren't specific leadership tips. She knew that she was always going to be the go-to person. She knew that they were always going to be in contact with her and that she could never not show up, that she had to be 100% positive, 100% motivated, just so it could stimulate everyone else's attitudes and behaviors. So that's how she transitioned from job to job. Now, power distance. So at Macy's, it was a very low power distance. It was very like casual training. They would just follow her around at the store that they were employed at, and she would tell them at that store what they would do and what they wouldn't do, basically. As a regular training would go, it wasn't like a huge deal. There weren't a lot of people, but she did have to train. She had a lot of training turnover. She had a lot of different groups, and she also had to be able to manage each of those better. So, like her first group, obviously, her very first group that she trained is obviously not going to be as good as her second or third. With practice, practice makes perfect. So, she basically noticed right off the bat that it was low power struggle. It was very casual. Um, and that the people that she was training learned better that way. And this was time and time again, so it didn't change with the groups. She started off more like formal and um, constructing her training very, strictly. And then she kind of loosened the reins a little bit as she got new groups. And she found that if she talked to them, of course, as a leader, but more as a part of their team, that they were more receptive to the information that she was giving them. And there would not be any mess ups or any issues down the line. So, the third topic that I'd like to talk about is diversity. So, I asked her, is diversity important? Does it not have an effect, or does it have a negative effect on being a leader and being in that group? So, like I mentioned before, she had 5 to 6 people that she was training, and she, like also what I said before, she liked to consider herself part of the team as well as the leader. So she came every day with her positive attitude and her 100% motivation. And she said that the diversity of thought was something that was really good for her to put her eggs in that basket, I guess. She wanted to make sure that everyone had the ability to think and stimulate thought in a group. Just because training was also about improvement. She wanted to know what she could do better or what Macy's could do better for the employees. So she wanted to make sure all the thoughts in the group were diverse and everyone didn't get into a group think in situation. So she had to make sure that she was always stimulating everyone's thoughts and coming up with new ideas for them to use. So those are the three topics that I talked about in my interview and that I focused on more closely just because those were more interesting to me. And I feel like what I learned from Caitlin in those three topics is definitely going to help me in my future days as a leader. Thank you.